Hello and welcome to the Vandy 24/7 podcast presented by FanDuel. I'm Chris Lee, joined by Tim Thompson. He's our special guest today. Of course, you know him as a color commentator for Vanderbilt men's basketball. Got a lot to talk about. Vanderbilt got an 88-56 win at Mississippi State and faces Kentucky next. We'll get into all that, take your questions with Tim and so forth. Title sponsor for 2026 is Sylvan Park Ventures, a Nashville-based investment firm partnering with entrepreneurial companies and real estate opportunities through thoughtful growth capital and long-term relationships. Find out more at sylvanparkventures.com. Basketball season here at Vandy 247 is presented by the Wash House. You handle the cheering, we'll handle the laundry. With the Wash House Laundry Center's new pickup and delivery service, your clothes go from dirty to dazzling faster than a Commodore victory. Whether you're a student, alum, or diehard fan, we've got you covered all season long. Schedule your pickup now at washhouseclean.com. The Wash House Laundry Center, Nashville's cleanest play for Commodore Nation. Our football coverage presented by former Vanderbilt kicker Joe Bulovas with Bulovas Wealth Management of Raymond James. If there is one thing we all share, it's that our lives are unique. At Raymond James, we believe that's worth celebrating because financial planning isn't just about numbers and figures. It's about creating the life you envision. Whether you are building a future or preparing for retirement, a Raymond James financial advisor can guide you each step of the way, all while following a plan that is uniquely yours. That is life well planned. To learn more, call financial advisor Joe Bulovas with Bulovas Wealth Management of Raymond James, 615-645-6742. Raymond James and Associates, members, New York Stock Exchange, SIPC. Tim Thompson, welcome back to the show. Glad you were back safely from Starkville because that was not a fun trip.
Yeah, it got a little hairy down the stretch. We got done with the game around 1 o'clock, and the players and everybody flew back, and it was a little hairy getting out of the airport. And then we drove back with some of the peripheral people on the bus, and we went straight east, got on the 65, and then hit the Tennessee line, and then it was really nasty, a bunch of ice, and then we got to Spring Hill on the way up, and then it became more snow, which was more drivable. But we didn't get home till probably, 7:30, 8 o'clock that night. Ooh. So it was a long trip. But, bottom line of the deal is it's a lot easier to make that trip when you win as opposed to lose.
Yeah, a lot more to talk about that was probably pleasant on the way home for sure. What stood out to you the most in that one?
Well, number one, we lost 3 in a row. And, I think it was kind of getting back right-sized again, getting back to kind of what we've been doing for the, first 16 games when we were winning everything. And part of that was just hardcore, intense defense and then being more physical. And, if you look at the stats, Duke Miles had 7 steals on his own, and we turned him over. We rebounded the basketball. We ran our stuff. The one thing I really liked was in our half-court offense, the ball was moving tremendously, and it never stuck. And when we do that, we're really hard to guard because I just think we have enough offensive, firepower that from a number of different guys that we can win a lot of basketball games, when we do that. And so it was a good game to kind of get well. Mississippi State's not a great team, but they got Hubbard and Epps, and that's about it. Their inside game is nowhere near what it normally is. And you see Mississippi State players that are, 6'10", 6'7", 6'8", that are super crazy athletic, and they don't have that like they've had in the past. So, but it was a game we needed to win, and now we're getting ready for Kentucky coming in here tomorrow night.
Yeah, this looked like the team out of the gate that we'd seen the first 16 games. And I was kind of watching for how would Vanderbilt start, because when it was winning 16 in a row, a lot of times it jumped on teams, before people got in their seats almost. That looked a lot more like that. The 3 games in the losing streak, other than the Florida game where Vanderbilt played well and just didn't win, that Arkansas game and that Texas game, I just didn't recognize that team. Mark Byington, I think, was unusually outspoken about the team not playing well. What do you think were the key points of emphasis in practice between those losses and the game Saturday?
Well, I think probably the key points in practice in preparation after those losses is just toughness and rebounding. We got hammered on the boards, by Texas and Arkansas, and it was just one of those things where and even Coach Byington said it. Just our readiness to play and our toughness, and I think that was probably the points of emphasis in practice was being able to be physical, rebounding the basketball, being more physical on defense. The one thing that I thought we did a really good job at Mississippi State, the first half, not so much, but, playing defense without fouling. And, that's one of the things that, I think has gotten us in a little bit of trouble, when we're playing decent defense, but we're fouling and we're putting the opposing team at the free throw line in a double bonus with 11 minutes left in the game. And that's one of the things that you're just kind of giving points away. And so that was an emphasis. Second half against Mississippi State, I thought we did a really good job of playing solid defense without fouling and putting them to the line. And then, I think it was a 9-2 run right out of the gate after halftime. We were up 21 at half, and then we did a 9-2 run right out of the gate, and it kind of put the game away. You could kind of see the body language.
Yeah.
Mississippi State players saying, we're not winning this game.
Yeah, I don't know that State ran off more than 4, maybe 6 points straight at any point in the game.
Yeah, I think you're right. There was we answered pretty much anything that if they scored 4 points in a row, we were at least matching it for the most part. And then, you go on those little mini runs that we can do. And again, really, you talk about the points off turnovers. We had 28 points off turnovers in that game. And I don't care who you are. If you give up 28 points off turnovers, you're going to get beat. And that was really, I thought the turning point in the game is just the amount of times we turned them over.
Yeah, keeping Duke Miles on the floor was big. He just had been getting in so much foul trouble. The other thing is Tyler Tanner looked better after, Darius Acuff got the best of him at Arkansas. But there was word going around that Tyler had the flu. I don't know if he played with it or was coming off it. Is there anything to that?
I think probably, there was some discussion about that, but, he's one of those kids that plays through everything. And I think he was coming off of it. And, in that 3-game, stretch that we lost, there was that game against Arkansas that I just felt like we looked a little tired, and especially at the guard position. Because, when you had Frankie Collins and Duke and Tyler all playing at the same time, you had that good 3-guard rotation where you could get Tyler and you get Duke some rest and not really lose anything. And I just felt like during that stretch, Tyler and Duke looked maybe a little bit tired. And I don't know when Frankie's coming back. I think he's getting closer. But if they can get that 3-guard rotation back in order, I think we'll be back to kind of where we were before.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, Tyler just, the minutes have got to be wearing on him. And with Miles, it's a thing every other game almost with the foul trouble. So there's that. But I know State's not a really good rebounding team, but Vanderbilt did win rebounding by +2. I think State had, 4 or 5 team rebounds, which counted in that. That's a lot of times, ball goes out of bounds, nobody possesses it. And like you said, not State's best big guys ever. But Vanderbilt's not going to be playing Florida or Arkansas every game. And I thought just to answer there was something in a better direction was a big thing.
Yeah, and I have always said, anytime you go on the road in this league and you win, that's a big win. I don't care who you are. Going into somebody else's gym and playing is something that's important. And, holding the home court is going to be important for us here down the stretch because, we've got some important games, coming up at home. You got Kentucky tomorrow night, and then you got Oklahoma coming in, Georgia coming in, Tennessee coming in. So you hold your home court and then could get a couple more road victories, which I think we can. I think we're going to be in great shape.
What did you make of substitution patterns in this one? We saw less Tyler Harris, maybe a little more Chandler Bing. Mike James got some run early until he got that third foul, which it just Mike James just can't seem to catch a break this year. But what did you think about maybe some things they did differently in terms of substitution flow?
Well, I just think, Coach Byington, he has a really good knack of, feel for the game and, who to bring in, and I thought that, Chandler Bing hadn't played, last couple games much. And, he came in off the bench. I thought he did a great job. He hits a three at the end of the first half. That was, I thought, really big, that put us up by 21. And then Mike James, he came in and I thought he gave us solid minutes defensively. He got a couple cheap fouls, that kind of thing. But, if you could get a guy like him going offensively, and then Tyler Harris, he didn't play a lot, but he came in at the end of the game and he scored almost six straight points, really quick points. And he's one of those guys that, I just think can't settle for threes all the time. He's a guy that can take the ball off the dribble. Once he gets you into the middle of the lane, he's so long and athletic that, he steps back and it's really hard to block, a guy like that shot. So, he's another guy I think we've got to get going. We get Frankie back in the role that, he's been in, get Tyler back rolling a little bit. And then, Mike James and Chandler Bing both. I mean, those are, added bodies that we can use during the stretch of this SEC.
Kentucky up next. Kentucky's won 5 in a row. I think 4 of them have been single digits. A couple of them buzzer-beating type games. Kentucky is down Jalen Lowe, Jaden Quaintance, and Cam Williams, who are 3 of their rotation guys. I don't think Kentucky's really been healthy all year. But it's kind of a weird Kentucky team. Other than Oweh, they don't have just an offensive juggernaut that you fear in terms of a guy that can just go off for 25 or 30 on you like Kentucky usually has. Interesting spot to get the Cats in here, Tim.
Yeah, I mean, we've been kind of hitting teams after losses, which is not good. And, they've won 5 in a row, and regardless of how they've won them, whether it's close, last second shot, whatever, they're 5-2 or whatever. And so, the Cats are the Cats. They come in here, you better be ready to play. Oweh is the guy that is averaging 16 points a game. And, the guy that tends to scare you a little bit is maybe the Aberdeen kid. And then the Chandler kid has played well against us in the past. And, you can't let those two guys go off. You got to hold them to their averages, which Aberdeen's averaging about 12 a game and Chandler's averaging probably 9 a game. You can't let those guys go for 20. You got to be able to manage that. And so, again, with their injuries, they're not as deep. They've got guys coming off the bench, but I don't think they're as talented as Kentucky's bench players have been in the past. So, but you got to be ready to play. And I think that's one of the things that, we'll see tomorrow. And I'm sure the game's going to happen tomorrow because I talked to a guy from Kentucky with the men's basketball program, and they were just actually getting ready to get on the plane to come down here. So I think the game is going to be played regardless of the weather situation.
Yeah, Aberdeen running their point just feels kind of weird. He was probably the third or fourth guard at Florida last year, although that was a heck of a backcourt. He's done pretty well in that role lately. He's been scoring more than I thought he would, 22 a game, or 22 against Tennessee a couple games ago, and that win in Knoxville, 19 against Texas, and that win only 6 against Ole Miss. But he's not turning the ball over, and that's a big thing when you're playing Vanderbilt, especially in Memorial. You can't let Vanderbilt get a bunch of easy buckets on you. So that's one thing to watch. Kentucky, I think, is going to try to play a slower tempo. You've seen Kentucky at times do what Vanderbilt does, which is try to turn offense into defense, because I think they struggle a little bit more in the half court at times. But I think that's one thing to watch is Tanner and Miles on him, because they really – Jalen Lowe is supposed to be their guy. He's had a shoulder that's been messed up since, I don't know, November or December, never really been the same. So that's kind of a place I'll have my eyes on Tuesday.
Yeah, I think, we're pretty talented at the guard position. And, if we can keep Duke out of foul trouble, just make sure that he's, if he's going to get a foul, don't do it 40 feet away from the basket.
Yeah.
Do it in the kind of the context of the whole defensive pattern. But, he really played well, against Mississippi State. And I think we got to keep him playing like that. He plays like that, we're going to be in really good shape.
You ready for some questions from the audience?
Sure.
All right. Tim's on the guest line. That's presented by friend of the show, John Levin and Womble Bond Dickinson. Again, friends of the show, we appreciate them. To the mailbag today is presented by Sutherland and Belk, a family-owned injury law firm. If you or a loved one has been hurt in an accident, give Taylor or Russell a call, 615-846-6200, see what your rights are and if they can help. Again, you can get mailbag questions in through the site at Vandy 247. We start a mailbag thread for all these, and you can also drop them in the chat if you like. We'll start with VU Matt. He had the first one on the thread on the board. In our last game being played 20 minutes, whereas Harris only played 4. Why do you think that is? Do you think that could be a trend that could continue?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly why it is. I think a lot of it has to do with practice. And, the thing I've always said is, I'm not at practice with these guys like the coaches are, and they see those guys every day in practice. And, Coach Byington, he's big about, being able to practice, at a high level. And again, I just think it's coach's prerogative when those kind of minutes happen. And, we were kind of rocking and rolling in our substitution pattern with what we were doing on Saturday. And I just think Coach Byington stuck with it.
Yeah, I think too, Harris kind of needed, just a little bit of a reset. It just hadn't consistently been good. I like what you said. Like, he had some opportunities that came to him in the end game there, and he scored, hit all 3 shots from the field and didn't force anything. Maybe just sitting down and having to think about, okay, if I'm going to play, it needs to be smart, was a thing that'll help him out in the end. Who knows?
Yeah.
Oh, let's see. HDYCUS1. What do you take from the 2 road losses to Texas and Arkansas? We seem rattled and even scared against Arkansas. Do you think these could point to a team that is too nice or missing an element of nastiness or killer instinct going into hostile environments?
Well, I just felt like, and Coach Byington said it, we weren't ready to play against Arkansas. Texas played really well against us. Their big guy, really put us in a difficult situation. Arkansas, they were coming off a loss at Georgia, and they were all amped up and everything, and they kind of got rolling. And we just, it was a snowball that we got caught up in. We couldn't get out of it. But again, to the point of the question too, is, yeah, we got to be a little bit more nasty. And I think Coach Byington, in preparation for the Mississippi State game, probably had practices where, you're going to have to play at a really high level, and it's in rebound the basketball and not back away from contact and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I think there was some of that to kind of get back on track.
Let's see. This is kind of the same thing. Foghorn wants your thoughts on those games. You hit the effort. This is the topic of constant conversation. It says, were we simply too small across the board? I do think they need one more big there. And Justin, no, I'm sorry, it wasn't Justin. It was 21 Outdoors asked about Leverett getting some extended minutes potentially. So I'll just kind of tie those 2 questions into one here.
Yeah, when you got a big 7-footer like the Texas team had that was athletic and could run the floor and do some things, and he set up down low at the block, and we really didn't have an answer. I know Washington is 6'10", but he's kind of a slight 6'10". He's athletic, he's long, but when he gets buried down low at the block, that tends to, he's not quite as effective. And that's exactly what happened against Texas. Against Arkansas, we just got caught in a meat grinder, I think, and we weren't prepared to play. and they got rolling, and they got downhill from the guard position, and I think they had 14 dunks in that game, and I think that's where Coach Byington even came in the post game press conference and said, it was kind of embarrassing how we played, and he's one of those coaches that he doesn't mince words. He tells it like it is.
Yeah.
And and then he knew we're going to go back and we're going to get better and we're going to prepare, and that's exactly what he did.
Harley Hog 44, big guards have really challenged Tanner and Miles, especially with aggressiveness and backing them down into the post. What defensive changes can be made with this in future games to offset the weakness?
Well, anytime you play big guards, Duke is pretty effective, as a playing against bigger guards. Tyler has too, but it's one of those things where it's difficult to play, and especially with the minutes that both those guys are playing with now. Both of them are, they're playing big time minutes, unless it's Duke who gets in foul trouble. But you're talking about Tyler, who's he's over probably 30 minutes a game now.
Yeah. I'm just the minute they get Collins back, and he looks 100% or close, I think that's when and I really want to see him play a big team in that circumstance. I know that Collins doesn't help him guard there, but it just helps with so many other things in terms of your defense in general.
Well, what it does is it helps out with just being able to rest Miles and Tanner. That to me, that's one of the most important things, is being able to get those guys, instead of playing 32 minutes a game for Tanner, getting him down to 27 or 28. I think that's important.
Thanks for the tour of the Thompson mansion here. We good, Tim? Do you need a break for a second?
I'm just, okay. My phone's going a little bit.
Oh, got you. Okay.
I'm trying to get my charger back, so I'll be back in the office here in just a second if you bear with me.
Yeah. I'll kill a minute. Let's see. I'm gonna have some more questions here from Justin in the chat. Yeah. I'll ask you this one while you're on the go here. Charleston alum, do we have bigs in school now who can help next year? Is height our main frontline problem?
Yeah, I think, Coach always says is, talking about, getting a big guy that can, guard like Florida bigs, 6'10", like Hanlocked and Condon, those kind of guys. We need one of those kind of guys that would be able to, 5 fouls, pound down low, score down low, do that kind of thing. But, once again, you look at Coach Byington's system, he likes to have bigs that can step out and shoot threes and be athletic and handle the basketball and do all that kind of stuff. So, I think they're looking for that. But at the same time, those guys aren't a dime a dozen. That's the thing.
No. Yeah.
So,
let's see. This is a good one. You may not know the answer, but I have a feeling you might. Steve VU98, what do the coaches in the league think, other than Nate Oates, about Charles Bediako playing Saturday?
I think to the coach, they hate it. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think Nate Oates really likes it, but he understands that that's, something that can be done. And if it can affect your team and make you better, I think Nate Oates is going to do it. I'm sure there's some other coaches that would probably do it at, the same thing. So I just think it's the NCAA, not doing their jobs. They haven't been doing their job for the last 10 years. Mark Emmert, was the head of the NCAA for so long, and all he did was collect a paycheck. He didn't do anything to help make the NCAA better. And what's happening right now is we're seeing the results of that ineptitude that happened under his leadership.
Well, even if they try, I don't know what they can do, because everything just keeps getting shot down in court.
Well, it's almost like the athletes are the ones now that are in charge.
Yeah.
There's no adult in the room. And the judges are just, they're saying, hey, we're going to side with the players at every point, and they're not winning anything. But somebody in the NCAA has to, start making some rules and doing some things, because this is absolutely a guy that, gets drafted, goes and plays G League, goes and plays overseas for, 2 years, and then comes back and then comes to college again. Come on.
Yeah.
That's just, that's not right.
Well, in that case, the NCAA said no, he shouldn't be playing, and Alabama just got a judge who's one of its donors who said not only can he play, you can't punish them or something like that for because the NCAA is kind of threatened to, I don't know if vacate victories is the right thing, but not count them towards the tournament. So what can you do in that case?
Well, it's out of control, and there's really nothing anybody can do about it. You like you say, you got a judge in Birmingham, Alabama, or wherever it was that, is maybe an Alabama grad or whatever. And that person's going to say, you know what, he can play, and we're going to, we're gonna put a stay to this, and nobody's going to do anything about it.
Yeah. And then you throw in I presume you saw Dabo Swinney's 8-minute rant last week.
Yeah. About just the tampering and all the other stuff that's going on.
Yeah. And finally, that's the first time that somebody, well, not the first time, but it's never been that blatant where one team says, hey, this is exactly what happened. Here it is, blow by blow.
Yeah. I mean, he pretty much laid it out the kid getting called in class, while he's in class. But again, what are they going to do about it? Who's going to do anything about it? That's the thing that frustrates me, is that it's all talk, but nobody's going to do anything about it until they put the hammer down on somebody. It's going to continue.
Let's see. Let me see if there's any more on the board. I think that's most of them. There are a couple in the chat. There's some on the board that we got to earlier in the show. So if you are just tuning in, we have answered just about everything here. Oh, let's see. Jay Hall, 84. That's Justin Holland. What is Bing ceiling in your eyes?
I think the coaches really like him. He's a guy that he actually guarded Hubbard. Hubbard is maybe 5'9", 5'10", but he's explosive. He gets up on his shot. They put Bing on him, and Bing's 6'5", 6'6", and I think they wanted him to guard him because he's a bigger body, he's long, he's one of those guys that can make it tough for Hubbard to shoot over the top of him. And I thought he did an excellent job when he got matched up on Hubbard. He knocks down the three at the end of the first half, which was big. We were that put us up 21 at half. And I think he might have had another basket, but again, it's one of those deals where I just think he's got an upside, and I think the coaches realize that. And the more confidence he has, he's a pretty solid shooter. He's got great rotation, good lift on his shot. I think he can be a solid outside perimeter shooter as well.
An interesting element of that game was Hubbard going out. Early in the second half, when they were down 20 something, it was really strange.
Yeah, I even said something to Kevin on the broadcast because they took him out. They took he and Epps out both.
Yep.
And they kept them both on the bench for probably 4 or 5 minutes during that stretch. And then they brought Epps back in the game, but they left Hubbard on the bench. So I don't know. Maybe something happened. Maybe something was said. But there was an extended period of time in the second half that Hubbard never played. And it was almost like, we're not going to win this game. Maybe I don't want to get him hurt or whatever. But, man, it was at a time where I thought he definitely could help him.
I know you've seen him play in person a few times. I have too. Have you ever seen a guy that gets more off the ground on a jump shot than him?
Oh, yeah, he's so
he's
explosive.
2 feet in the air. His feet are 2 feet in the air when he's shooting, which is how he gets them off.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that he will shoot it deep too. It's not like he's at the 3-point line. He'll go 3 steps outside the 3-point line and he'll jump up and shoot it. My own personal opinion, based on the body language that I saw in that game, I think a guy like that, he goes into the portal. I don't think that he'll be at at Mississippi State next year. Just me by what I saw. And he really doesn't have a lot of help on that team. I mean, if he doesn't get 25 or 30, they're struggling. And we did a really good job on him. I think he was 2 for 10 from the field, 1 for 5 from the 3-point line. So overall, Tyler and Duke and Bing did a great job on him.
He's a Mississippi kid.
Yeah, he is. And I think he's one of those kids that would be loyal, but if you're looking at that team and thinking, hey, we got to get some more help inside for me because I can't do it all by myself.
Yeah. Well, Chris Jans is known more for the other side of the ball than he is offense, I think. So Justin wants to know, with McLaughlin being able to play the 4 this season, his true position, why is his performance seemingly worse than last season?
Well, the coaching staff asked, him to do a lot. And he's been guarding a 5. I think they would love to play him at the 4, more, but he's been guarding a 5, and that's not his natural position. But I think he's starting to play a little bit better. I was looking at the stats.
Tim, do we lose you there? I'll give Tim a minute. His screen is frozen on my end. So I don't know if that's a problem with me or a problem with Tim. Anyway, got a couple more questions from Justin that we'll get to. In fact, I'll answer them while Tim's frozen here. Justin wants to know why we have such a high foul number every game with Byington's defense. I just think that's the way they've always played. At James Madison, they played that way. I think it's try to put pressure on the ball, get some easy steals. Maybe in some of those gambles, it depends on, who's calling the game. How closely are they calling the games, that kind of thing. Justin wants to know, improving half-court defense rest of the season, even with Collins back. I think a lot of that's just effort. 21 Outdoors wants to know, is Nicholson just out of shape or is he hurt? That's a great question. I feel like I say this every week. I keep meaning to ask that at the press conference. I would think, oh, here we go. Tim's back, I think.
My
hey,
phone,
you were frozen there for a moment.
Yeah. My phone froze up on me. Sorry.
That's okay.
But I was looking at the stats for McLaughlin, and he had 10 points, 4 rebounds. He was 4 for 4 he had 2 assists. If we can get 10 points out of him every night and 6, 7 rebounds and a couple assists, that's what we should ask of him. And when he and Jalen are playing together, I kind of like that matchup. And you move nickel to the 3, and now all of a sudden you move nickel to the 3 at a 6'7", 6'8" guy that can shoot from the perimeter. That's a pretty solid lineup.
When Nickel's hitting 5 or 6 threes, they're almost unbeatable.
Yeah. I mean,
as long as they're giving effort on the defensive end.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. I can tell you right now that there were a couple, shots that he had. If you look at that he was 3 for 8 from the 3-point line. And there were 2 of those were extremely deep. One of them was contested. But I thought he did a really good job of just not settling for threes. He ran the floor well. He had a couple dunks. It was one of those deals where, when he does that and he can get into other things besides just hitting threes, we're a dangerous team.
Yeah, I really like him. I just think he's a, elite shooter, great teammate, just does a lot of things to help them.
Yeah. Well, he makes the other team do things that they don't really want to do sometimes because of what an elite shooter he is.
I was thinking the other day, surely he gets a look in the NBA, like at least a G League shot. With that size and with his shot, I wouldn't be surprised if Tyler Nickel ended up playing some minutes in the NBA eventually. Would you?
I think he's that good a shooter. Yes.
Yeah.
The only downside would probably be just, how super athletic the NBA is. But you have a guy like that comes off the bench that can score from that, that deep position on the floor. He's got to be with the right team. But I think, he's a guy that could give an NBA team some solid minutes coming off the bench as a second level scorer, coming off the bench.
Yeah, I agree. And he's got a good mid-range too.
Yeah.
He's got some, that little fallback thing that he does sometimes, the step back. I mean, he's got some other things. So
yeah.
Justin wants to know how you improve the half court defense for the rest of the season, even with Collins back.
Well, again, like I've said many times, you got to play defense without fouling. And I think that's, one of the things. I mean, Arkansas exposed us a little bit just because those two freshman guards that they had, they're good. Like both those guys will not be at Arkansas next year. They'll both be in the NBA. And, I thought those guys got downhill against us. We didn't really square up on them and keep them in front of us. And when we didn't do that, then it turned into kind of, we had to play gap defense, help defense, and then it turned into a dunk-a-thon. But those two guards, we've got to do a better job of keeping the offensive player in front of us and kind of managing it that way.
All right, here's the mandatory Mason Nicholson question from 21 Outdoors. Do we know if he's out of shape or hurt or what?
I'll be honest with you. I know nothing about that. I know he had mono, and I think he got he was sick for a long time. Probably got a little bit out of shape. But I just think that now that the coaching staff has kind of gotten the rotation where they want it, I don't see them deviating from that much. And so I just don't think he's going to play a lot just based on the fact that they've got their rotation pretty much intact.
It's weird they never do put him on the injury report.
Well, yeah, I don't think he's injured. I just think he's in a situation where, he's behind guys and he's just not going to get the minutes.
Justin says, in the era of transfer portal, how do we keep our current quality freshmen engaged with enough minutes to pair them with our top crop of freshmen next season?
Well, there's going to be, depending on how everything works out with that, that 5-year rule, I don't know if they've ruled on that yet, but that will affect us a little bit with a couple different players. But I think these incoming freshmen are pretty elite class. I mean, they're all in the top 100. I just think that, I think Chandler Bing, coming back, he'll be able to help. But again, the transfer portal is what it is. And, I can tell you right now, this staff is really engaged in evaluating, high school talent, evaluating, portal talent from other schools, that kind of thing. And I just don't think that there's ever a set comment that you can make about this guy's coming back or this guy's not coming back. I just think, it kind of will have a life of its own, once the season's over.
Last one from Justin. Can AJ Ogilvy come back?
Yeah.
I thought it too.
Yeah. I mean, is there anybody else, that played that could maybe come back as well? I don't know. Shane Foster, could he roll back in here?
Yeah. I thought about that one too. I mean, AJ never played a game in the NBA. Now he's like 39 now, I think. So
yeah, I think he's a little bit past his prime.
Right. That might be your obstacle there.
But again, I mean, we laugh about it, but it's serious stuff now. I mean, people, I'm sure there's going to be some people that do that. I mean, Baylor had a player too that came in from the the G League. And so again, it's just a wild, wild west is what it is, Chris. And it's, I don't think it's going to stop.
Yeah. Bryce Drew's brother, Scott, is the one that started all this.
Yeah.
In, I don't know, December, whenever it was.
Yeah.
Somebody asked what happened to Jalen Washington's 3-point shot. As I look at it, I guess he's hit one in SEC play. That was against LSU. He's been 0 for 1 the last 4 games. So,
well,
I don't know.
He's not shooting the three as much. I don't think there's anything happened to it. I think he's still solid. He's been, pretty solid. I mean, if you look at what he's done, and I try to do, conference stats, and you look at him, and he's only shot 6 3-pointers. He's 1 for 6. But I think he's done a pretty solid job of knocking down free throws when we've had to have him in critical situations. He's doing a decent job rebounding. If you look at the Mississippi State game, he had 8 rebounds, 8 points. He had 2 offensive rebounds, 6 defensive rebounds. And if we have him come in and give us 8 points and 8 rebounds every game, that's pretty solid coming in off the bench, because there's going to be a couple games where he's going to get you 15 as well, maybe 15 and 8, but I think he's had a really good season so far. He was really not healthy at North Carolina, and knock on wood, he's been pretty healthy since he's been playing for us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, you don't need him to shoot 3-pointers. You got a lot of guys who can, but you also don't cringe when he throws one up either.
No, I don't. I mean, he's a decent enough 3-point shooter that, when he's wide open, I don't say, oh, that's not a good shot. And I don't think Coach Byington does either. I think Coach Byington has and this coaching staff has confidence in his 3-point shot as well.
Tim, any parting thoughts before I let you go today?
No, I just, we went through, in my opinion, one of the toughest stretches that we have in our season. You had Florida at home, and I think, if they call the hook and hold, I think we may have a chance to win that game. Texas, that was a tough matchup for us because of their big guy inside. Tremont Marks, I mean, he played his tail off that time. And then, you got into a buzzsaw with Arkansas. So and then, go to Mississippi State and you win. I thought this stretch was one of our toughest. And I think if we righted the ship against Mississippi State, we get ready to play tomorrow and, get a win against Kentucky. I think Ole Miss is a winnable game. And then you come home and play Oklahoma, who I think we absolutely can beat. So we kind of push ourselves on a little bit of a win streak here, and solidify our NCAA chances. I think right now, when I looked at bracketology, we were a 4 seed. They had us trending down a little bit, but at the same time, a 4 seed that'd be a great seed to have.
They can easily get back to the 3 line if not the 2. I think I'm with you. I think that I don't know, that stretch, the 3-game stretch they just came out of, starting with Texas, the 3 losses, I don't think they'll play a tougher 3-game stretch all season, given how those teams match up with them.
Yeah, I think you're right. And, now that we're out of it, we got the win at Mississippi State. I think we can get right and run some wins off here these next couple weeks.
All right, Tim, appreciate your time today. We'll catch you next week.
All right, thanks.
All right, thank you guys for watching and listening to the podcast. It's always been free. We want to keep it that way. Just give us a 5-star rating where you see these. Leave us a thumbs up on YouTube and support Vandy 247. It's about $120 a year. That's another thing you can do to help us. Anyway, for Tim Thompson, I'm Chris Lee. Thank you for watching and listening to the Vandy 247 podcast presented by FanDuel.